Hey, GW coming to you live Sunday morning. Hey, listen, we're going to review Parents. It's a 1988 Randy Quaid horror satire movie, and it deals with 1950s cannibalism and a bunch of other stuff, mainly fear of two things that are very scary when you're growing up as a kid: parents. That's the movie, the title. So let's just dive right into it. Couple of things about this movie, a couple of facts, if you will. Number one is that the initial DVD was out of print very quickly. The second thing is that when this thing hit the box office, it was pretty much considered a bomb, meaning that it didn't make the profits that it wanted to do. Partially because most critics didn't look at this as a horror film. They looked at it as a satire of a horror film. So therefore, it kind of missed the mark. However, this film has some key star power. Randy Quaid, who I mentioned yesterday, before he went all nuts and, off the grid and, running from IRS or whatever he did, he plays a character simply known as Dad. And he is married to a character called Mom, obviously, played by Mary Beth Hurt. They have a kid in the film, a character of a son. And for whatever reason, the credits rolled, and he was the last one to be credited, or one of the first four to be credited, and I didn't get his name. But anyway, you can look it up and see who it is. But this film is creepy on a couple of levels, boys and girls. Don't think that this film is a failure and it didn't do anything. This film basically is about a kid who sees his parents and starts thinking that they are cannibals. One of the cool things that Bob Balaban does through this film is he constantly is shoving meat in our face, giving us the idea that that's basically all they eat. So therefore, when you think of that idea, then you think of the fact that they really might be cannibals. And there's certain rules in this movie that the kid has to go by. Don't go into the freezer. That's a hint. Don't go down to the basement. Everything that Bob Balaban does in this film kind of makes us believe that Randy Quaid, Dad, and Mary Beth Hurt, Mom, are not very normal parents, if you catch my meaning. The problem is that with the execution, this film is neat and it definitely captures the spirit of the 50s, meaning that, the house they live in looks exactly like the Brady Bunch house, with a few modifications. The cars look just like something out of the 50s. Everything is done with a touch of realism here. This is not over-exaggerated. This isn't like that movie Suburbia with Matt Damon, where, killings are frequent, random, and you don't know. This actually builds a lot of tension, and it has become a cult classic pretty much, within people that see it. It wasn't a mainstream hit, obviously, so it found its mark on video. Excuse me. However, as I was getting back to the performances of Randy Quaid and Mary Beth Hurt, they are also joined, ladies and gentlemen, by Sandy Dennis. Sandy Dennis plays a guidance counselor in this film who kind of wants to figure out what is wrong with the son character. And she basically tries to draw him out and tell her what's bothering him, And it's a little bit of a push and pull. The movie's done toward the end in a sort of violent explosion, if you will. And I don't mean, blood and guts all over the place. I mean that most of the blood and gore, and the reason that it was rated R, happens to be at the end. There is some suggestive imagery until the very end of the film. But basically, you're looking at a kid who catches his mom and dad in a bloody embrace, and from that point on, he becomes paranoid and delusional. It's not so hard to believe that could happen in real life. But, like I said, one of the things Bob Balaban does is throw meat in our face, giving us the idea that these people are cannibals, which I just said. That plays into the fear of the little kid. And Randy Quaid's performance, I've got to tell you, most people think of him as Cousin Eddie from the National Lampoon movies. I don't know what else he might have done other than this. But his performance in this gives you a feeling like he's a ticking time bomb. He's ready to go off at any point. You don't know how he's going to react, which makes the film very, very creepy to watch, because up until, like I said, the last 20 minutes of the film or whatever, you get the feeling like when this boy snaps, it's going to be, over. The other thing is the nightmare sequences. They are done elaborate and they are done pretty trippy. You really don't know where this film is going to end up until you get to the middle. The one thing about Randy Quaid's character, going back to him again for just a minute, is that, like I just said, he is devious. You don't know what he's capable of. And, there's a scene later on in the film where the son is walking down the street. Randy Quaid pulls up at the car. Well, the viewer can see there's something in the back seat. He tells the kid it's just laundry. In fact, he says, "Keep your damn hands off my laundry," which leads you to believe that there might not be laundry in there. There might be a dead body in there waiting to be carved up and served on a plate. There is no real profanity in this movie. I was actually surprised. The R rating became because of, I guess, blood and violence. So there is no other profanity than the word damn, which really, is shocking to see a movie like that. The outfits, the appearance of the 50s is done wonderful. And this is a movie where, it's another one of those films where, you look and everything on the outside looks pretty normal. But when you start getting into the depths, you see how dark normalcy can really be with this movie. The other thing I like about this movie is, like I just said, you don't know where it's going to go. Randy Quaid plays a virtual, ticking time bomb, as I just mentioned. But he is complemented by Mary Beth Hurt. Mary Beth Hurt, even though she may or may not be a cannibal, she comes off as an ordinary, everyday, nothing is wrong with her type of character. And that, again, makes the film even more frightening because, again, it captures that realism that I was talking about. So, like I said, this is one of the only horror films, I think, if not the only horror film Randy Quaid has been in. Shortly after he made National Lampoon's, I think it was Vegas Vacation, he was the last one in. He basically flew off the grid, got in a lot of trouble, and I really haven't heard from him since. In fact, a couple years ago, they showed a picture on the news of him. He's really grizzled and disheveled, and basically, I don't know what happened. Dennis Quaid disappeared too. You guys remember Dennis Quaid? He was from Inner Space. Done a ton of stuff. He basically dropped off the face of the earth too. I don't know what's going on. But in any event, if you get a minute, check out Parents. Vestron Video has put it out. You can get it on Amazon. It is a rarity. It's not your standard horror film, and it's not really a satire, but it does make you feel a little bit uneasy because maybe there was that type of thing, in the 50s. Maybe there was cannibalism swept under the rug, and maybe, that situations like this had happened. The other weird thing about it is that you never quite know what people are capable of. There's a line in this film that Randy Quaid says at the beginning of the movie. When the son comes up to him and says, "Hey, Dad, I'm scared of the dark." Randy Quaid says, "You know what? You can be yourself in the dark." So I wonder if he's implying he does live a double life. It makes you think, Like, some of these things are sprinkled throughout the movie, and then you start thinking about it, and you wonder if what you're hearing is actually truth to another life that they lived, they just don't show. But Bob Balaban does a cool job of keeping us in the middle of knowing and not knowing what these people are capable of. Like I said, you never really see them murder anybody. You see them... Well, I take that back. At the end of the movie, there is sort of a... I wouldn't say a murder, but an attack. And then you see the aftermath. You don't really see the carving up or whatever, but it does make you think. And this is a movie, too, where I think a lot of the violence before the end of the film is implied, and it makes you think you saw something you didn't quite see. So, Parents is an underrated horror flick. Like I said, horror satire movie. Check it out. It's not going to be for everybody, because it is a slow burn type of movie, but you have to look at it from the kid's point of view. Another cool thing this movie does is that it does the slow-mo, trick, which I don't know if you guys remember that. It's where somebody gets shot and the bullet comes and it's real slow and you get to see the impact instead of speeding up normal speed. This film does it pretty well. It also takes some scenes and shows us what it looks like through the sun's eyes. And it's a neat camera trick, and I think it deserves credit for that. So overall, Parents, I would give it a 7 out of 10. It's not great. It's not for everybody. But the things, like I said, it has going for it is you never quite know what these people are up to type deal. You have Randy Quaid, who's a ticking time bomb, which I said 3 times already. You have Mary Beth Hurt, who covers it up very well. You never quite know what's in her head, but if there is something sinister, you never quite get to see her flash out. You never would know it in a million years. You have Sandy Dennis as the school psychologist, who brings some life, and some sort of direction to this film. You also have, like I said, most of the violence is implied. It makes you see things you weren't there. And I believe Sandy Dennis looks like the girl on Creepshow, Aunt Bedelia. So if you guys watch this, you guys tell me. I'm thinking it's the same girl, but I don't know. So we'll see. But this movie, like I said, was shot in 88. And Bob Balaban, for all the credit that I just gave him, this is a film that should have been remade with heavy overtones of cannibalism, and maybe make it to where you really don't know, and you find out at the end. Now, this film, you kind of find out at the end, but again, it's an interesting film. I'll just put it that way. So check out Parents. Next week, we'll take a trip back, and we'll talk about Linda Blair's Hell Night. If you guys don't know that, she was in a couple of movies other than The Exorcist. I know The Exorcist made her a huge star, but she was also in a movie called The Chilling, and she was also in a movie called Hell Night. And Hell Night, I think she did right after The Exorcist, if not before. So we're going to talk about that film, and who knows? But yeah, when you're a kid, the scariest thing in the world are your mom and dad. I mean, they're scary without the cannibalism aspect, but you throw that in there. Oh, mama. So definitely give Parents a whirl. Check it out from Vestron Video. The original DVD, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, it's out of print, but you can always get it from Vestron Video, courtesy of Amazon. GW, and I will talk to you later.